The wind howled through Chicago's concrete canyons, whipping rain into stinging needles that lashed at anything exposed. It was October, and the city was caught in the grip of a late-season storm, the kind that turned streets into rivers and made the homeless huddle deeper into their makeshift shelters. Under the shadow of a rusted bridge spanning the Chicago River, 16-year-old Marcus Tate crouched beside a dumpster, his thin jacket soaked through. His fingers numb from the cold, sifted through a pile of discarded cans and bottles, each one a small promise of $1 or $2 at the recycling center. The river churned below its dark waters, swollen and angry, spitting foam against the bridge's supports. Marcus had been on the streets for 2 years, ever since his mother's overdose, and the foster system spat him out. He'd learned to survive by keeping his head down, moving fast, and trusting no one. But tonight, the storm made scavenging nearly impossible. His stomach growled a hollow ache that had become a constant companion. He was about to give up and seek shelter when headlights sliced through the rain, illuminating the narrow street above the bridge. A sleek black SUV roared past its tires, hissing on the wet pavement. Marcus barely glanced up. Rich folks, in their fancy cars, were a world apart from him. Then came the screech of brakes, a sound so sharp it cut through the storm's roar. Marcus froze his hand, clutching a dented soda can. A muffled cry followed, faint but unmistakable, like the wail of something small and helpless. He looked toward the bridge's edge, where the SUV had swerved to a stop. The driver's door flew open, and a man in a tailored coat stumbled out, his phone pressed to his ear, his voice frantic. "No, no, no, where is she? Oh God, I didn't see." Marcus's eyes darted to the riverbank. Something small and pale bobbed in the water, carried by the current toward the bridge's shadow. His heart lurched. It couldn't be. But then he saw it again. A tiny arm flailing weakly against the waves. A baby. He didn't think. His body moved before his mind could catch up, dropping the can and sprinting toward the river's edge. The bank was slick with mud, and he slipped, catching himself on a jagged rock. The water was a black void, cold enough to steal his breath just by looking at it. Above, the man was shouting into his phone, oblivious to Marcus's presence. "I swear, I didn't." Something fell out of the car seat. "I didn't know." Marcus's shoes sank into the mud as he reached the water's edge. The baby was closer now, a small bundle wrapped in a blanket, tumbling in the current. He could see her face, pale and gasping, her tiny mouth open in a silent scream. The river was moving fast, too fast. If he didn't act now, she'd be gone. He kicked off his shoes and dove in. The cold hit him like a fist, seizing his lungs and locking his muscles. The current yanked at him, dragging him under before he could surface. His arms flailed, searching for something solid. His hand brushed against fabric, the blanket. He grabbed it, pulling with all his strength, and broke the surface, gasping. The baby was in his arms, her cries weak but alive. The river fought to pull them both under, but Marcus kicked hard, his legs burning with the effort. He couldn't feel his fingers, couldn't tell if he was still holding her tightly enough. The bridge loomed above a dark silhouette against the storm. "Help!" he screamed, his voice hoarse against the wind. "Somebody!" The man on the bridge finally saw him, his face pale as he dropped his phone. "Oh God, you've got her!" he shouted, scrambling down the embankment. Marcus's strength was fading, his body numb from the cold. The current slammed him against a concrete piling, and pain shot through his shoulder. He clutched the baby tighter, her tiny body shivering against his chest. "Hold on," the man yelled, wading into the shallows. He reached out his hands, shaking, and grabbed Marcus's arm, pulling him toward the bank. Together, they stumbled onto the muddy shore, collapsing in a heap. Marcus's vision blurred, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The baby wailed a sound that cut through the fog in his mind. She was alive. The man tore off his coat and wrapped it around the baby, his hands trembling as he checked her for injuries. "You saved her," he said, his voice breaking. "You saved my daughter." Marcus could barely nod, his body shaking uncontrollably. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. The man looked at him, his face a mix of gratitude and guilt. "What's your name, kid?" "Marcus," he managed, his teeth chattering. "I'm Daniel Hargrove," the man said. "I owe you everything." Paramedics arrived, minutes later, bundling the baby, her name was Lily, into a warmed blanket and rushing her to the hospital. Marcus was wrapped in a foil blanket, his body still trembling from the cold. Daniel insisted on riding with him in the ambulance, his eyes never leaving his daughter. Marcus learned in fragmented pieces what had happened. Daniel was a tech CEO founder of a cybersecurity firm that powered half the city's infrastructure. He'd been on a call distracted when he'd hit a pothole, and the poorly secured car seat had tipped over, sending Lily tumbling out the open window. It was a freak accident, one that would haunt him forever. At the hospital, Marcus was treated for hypothermia and a bruised shoulder. Daniel stayed by his side, refusing to leave until he was sure Marcus was okay. "You didn't have to do that," Daniel said, his voice quiet. "You could have died." Marcus shrugged, staring at the hospital floor. "Didn't think about it. Just did it." Daniel studied him, his eyes searching. "Where's your family?" "Marcus." "Don't have one," Marcus said, his voice flat. He braced for pity, but Daniel just nodded, like he understood. "I'm going to make this right," Daniel said. "You hear me?" Marcus didn't know what that meant, and he didn't care. He was too tired, too cold, too used to promises that never materialized. But Daniel was different. Over the next week, he tracked Marcus down at the shelter, where he sometimes crashed. He offered Marcus a job as a delivery runner for his company, a steady paycheck, and a scholarship to a community college with a tech program. Marcus was skeptical people like him didn't get breaks like this. But Daniel was relentless, showing up with paperwork, a prepaid phone, and a new jacket. "You saved my daughter," Daniel said. "This isn't charity. It's what you've earned." Marcus took the job expecting it to fall apart, like everything else in his life. But it didn't. He showed up every day delivering packages across the city, learning the rhythm of Daniel's company. The scholarship came through, and he enrolled in night classes, studying coding and software development. It was hard. His brain felt rusty, and the other students seemed light years ahead. But he was stubborn. He spent hours in the library, teaching himself Python, JavaScript, anything he could get his hands on. The river had nearly killed him, but it had also woken something inside him, a hunger to be more than a kid scraping by. 2 years later, Marcus graduated with an associate's degree and a job offer from Daniel's company as a junior developer. He was 18, no longer a kid, and the world looked different. He had an apartment small, but his own with a view of the Chicago River. Sometimes he'd stand at his window, staring at the water, remembering that night. It wasn't just about saving Lily. It was about saving himself. But Marcus couldn't forget where he'd come from. The streets were still full of kids, like him, scraping by invisible to the city's glittering skyline. He started volunteering at shelters, teaching basic coding to teenagers who reminded him of himself, wary, guarded, but curious. One night, while showing a group how to build a simple website, an idea hit him. Why not make this bigger? Why not give these kids a real shot? Like Daniel had given him, he founded CodeBridge, a nonprofit to teach tech skills to homeless and at-risk youth. He used his savings to rent a small office, scrounged old laptops from Daniel's company, and partnered with local shelters to find students. The first class was small, 5 kids, all skeptical. But Marcus was patient. He taught them to code, to problem solve, to believe they could be more than their circumstances. Word spread, and soon CodeBridge was training dozens of kids, some of whom landed internships or jobs in tech. Marcus never forgot the bridge that changed his life. On the 5th anniversary of that stormy night, he tracked down Daniel, now a mentor and friend. They met at a coffee shop near the river Lily, now a lively 5-year-old, chattering at Daniel's side. Marcus pitched his idea, a citywide rescue training program funded by Daniel's company and CodeBridge, to teach lifeguards, paramedics, and volunteers how to save lives in emergencies, like the one on the river. They'd call it the Bridge Initiative, a nod to the place where their lives had intersected. Daniel didn't hesitate. "Let's do it," he said, his eyes bright. "For Lily, for you, for every kid out there who needs a chance." The Bridge Initiative launched a year later, training hundreds across Chicago. Marcus stood at the inaugural event under the same bridge where it all began, now marked with a small plaque in honor of courage, compassion, and second chances. He looked out at the crowd, city officials, CodeBridge graduates, Daniel and Lily, and felt something he hadn't in years. Pride. The river still flowed dark and relentless, but Marcus wasn't afraid of it anymore. He'd faced its worst and come out stronger. As the event ended, a young girl from CodeBridge approached him, holding a laptop with a program she'd built, a simple app to connect homeless youth with resources. "Think it's any good?" she asked, nervous. Marcus smiled, seeing himself in her hesitation. "It's better than good," he said. "It's a start." And in Chicago, under the shadow of a bridge, that was enough. Dich Sang Tieng Viet.